Welcome to Church Biz. This is your host, Reverend Patrina McClure. We do so thank you for tuning in to today's show. We have a very special guest here in the WCEG Talk Radio studio, but we are still your worldwide community empowerment group. Don't forget that. So you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter in order to get that word you need for today. Call us at 678-619-1402 to join the conversation. We are your 501c3 nonprofit community radio station. So please consider giving us a tax-deductible donation so that we can continue on with providing the information that you need. You already know that WCEG covers a gamut of topics for your life. So always you can tune in to us here at WCEG Network, WCEG Talk Radio, to get a word for you. But here in our studio, we have our very, very, very special guest today, the HR workplace coach himself, Mr. Johnny Knatt. Welcome, Johnny.
Well, thank you for having me, Patrina. It's a blessing just to be here to share what's very, very important to me with the folks out in the audience.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Can you start us off with telling us about you?
Yeah, sure. A little bit of my background. I spent my first 30 years with a little company called Procter & Gamble. And those years probably spanned about 33 years before I left Procter & Gamble after spending a few years in various different assignments, ranging everything from warehouse manager to lab quality control. And then as I gained more time with P&G, I became interested in helping people. I wanted to get closer to my life purpose, which is making a difference in the lives of those people that I come in contact with. And there were 100,000 people at P&G, so it certainly was an opportunity for me to present my skills. I felt like, God had given me a real talent, a real ability, a real skill, and that was in connecting with people and being able to relate to people and build relationships with people very easily. So, we all have a talent, and it's up to us to kind of nurture that talent. So I began to work in human resource assignments. So I work in employment law, I work in organizational development, and I just became an HR generalist after a while to work in just about every aspect. Mm-hmm. So after doing that for a while and traveling coast to coast and staying on Delta Airlines 3 or 5 days a week, I decided that I wanted to do what most HR managers do, which is to get out there on my own and test my wings and see if I could be a consultant and help some of those smaller companies who didn't have an HR resource. So in 2008, I came out of corporate and hung a shingle and started One HR Partner. And in 2008, I'm sure most of you who were around then understood what happened. The economy crashed, and so did Johnny Knatt's business.
Wow.
Yeah, but I hung in there. And, when you can't make it, you try to help people to help themselves. So in 2008, a lot of people were transitioning jobs because they lost their jobs, things that they had done most of their lives. They were now having to shift careers. So I did a lot of pro bono work, just helping people rewrite resumes, teaching them how to interview, helping them position themselves. And, during those times, resources were very scarce. So, as I said, I did a lot of pro bono work. But I was blessed, and I obtained some contract work with the city of Roswell, and the rest was history. People started to recognize, the skill, and I was offered a position with the state, and I came on with the state, working in state government, which is something I said I'd probably never do.
Oh, wow.
But and I got introduced to law enforcement, and I was working in a law enforcement organization. I did that for 4.5 years as a deputy HR director, and I came back and continued to develop, my skills and my growth, and I was able to understand things from a much broader perspective, much broader perspective. I'd basically been working in the employee relations area, but now, I understood that, HR has a lot of different essential functions.
Yes.
So I became certified. I went out and got my SHRM certification, which kind of exposed me to a lot of different aspects of human resources. I was so successful that when the new agency was created, the Department of Community Supervision was created, I was tasked to become the director of HR, which is the role I'm doing now. But I never lost my passion for helping people. And that's why I kept doing the HR workplace coach, because I started thinking, we all have niches, and you got to find your niche because you can't be everything for everybody. Mm-hmm. So I said, how can I help people? How can I get back to my life purpose?
Wow.
And so the workplace coach, to me, I started thinking how many people had left organizations, had left positions because they became frustrated, because they couldn't understand the nuances of the workplace. We all come with hard skills. I mean, we're very intelligent. We can comprehend hard skills, like the technical skills that we need to do a work, but sometimes we lack those soft skills. So that's the area that I tend to focus on. I tend to help people navigate through the workplace by focusing on those soft skills, and how to handle those difficult issues. The workplace is a very complex place. We don't think about it as that. But you think about all of your life skills in terms of things that you're doing prior to the time that you get a job, and then you combine that with work, and it becomes very complex. So now you're trying to balance your work-life balance. You've got your things that are important to you in your life, and you're having to balance all of those. So anyway, I'll tell you more about the workplace coach and what we do as we go forward. But that's why I'm doing the HR workplace coach and loving it, because it really does connect me closer to my life purpose, which is to make a difference in all of the people that I come in contact with.
That is awesome. Now, I noticed you mentioned soft skills. Can you tell us what are soft skills? Because you said hard skills are the technical or the trained skills we develop, but the soft skills are?
Yeah, the soft skills are those interpersonal skills. Those are the skills that kind of help us relate to each other in the workplace. It's not very easy because we all bring differences to the workplace. Now, those differences are of value because, we know all about diversity and the value that it brings from a gender standpoint and from ethnic backgrounds. But, it also brings its complexities to the workplace because we are all different. We all operate very, very differently. And sometimes, that produces conflict. Okay, so when we think about interpersonal skills, we sometimes think about just the conflict aspect, but there's so much more than that. What I like to do is to make sure that people have all of those personal skills that they need in order to survive in the workplace. And I'm talking about things just as simple as empathy. If a person is not empathetic, if they have no empathy, they have no sense of feeling for other individuals. So that's one of the 10 basic skills that I espouse that people should have. The second one is, and we probably don't think about it as a skill, It's professionalism.
Okay.
Okay. So, of course, when I first heard the term professionalism, what I pictured was a person in a dark blue suit with a tie and a white shirt.
Okay.
But that's the furthest thing from it, Professionalism is simply being able to do what's expected of you. Okay. Follow the policies of procedure. Even simpler than that. Showing up from work on time.
Okay.
Okay. Just being on time. Just doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. Okay. So that's basically another aspect of professionalism. Another top skill that people sometimes take for granted and don't develop is around communication.
Wow.
Now, when I say communication, basically, you're probably thinking verbal, right? But no, it's a lot more than that because, if I communicate with you, actually, you probably retain only 10% of the words that I will tell you.
Yeah.
But however, if we're talking about, if I give you the right facial expression, or even if I use touch, that communicates a whole different level of understanding to you. So, I try to help people understand the nonverbal aspects of communication, okay, the voice, the tone, something I've learned since, of course, through my marriage is the eye inflection. The worst thing you can do is to roll your eyes when you're communicating somebody because it does
I need to work on that.
Yes. So a lot of these basic skills, though, is that we don't stop and think of these things. Things like negotiation. In the workplace, you're going to have to negotiate your position with your supervisor at some point or another, either to help them understand your perspective or to understand another perspective. And where do you land on that? So it's very, very important to have a negotiation skill. Now, here's one that we probably don't think about.
Okay.
Showing confidence.
Wow.
Okay? How confident are you? Because it's very, very important that you display that, because that confidence is something that helps you to express yourself much better. So how do you build confidence? So you build knowledge, you build skill, right?
Okay.
And the other piece is will. So there's knowledge, skill, and will. And when you have those things, then you're able to be more confident because you know that you have prepared yourself well in order to move forward.
Now, don't you think a lot of people feel like if they show or exert confidence, they're perceived as being arrogant? How do you find that balance in between the two to not come off as being or having the big head, if you will?
Yeah, sure. And listen, I think I can remember when I was coming up as a kid, my mom used to tell me all the time, just work hard, don't brag on yourself, but that's all changed.
Okay.
You must be your own, biggest advocate. Self-advocacy is okay. It's an expected thing. If you don't advocate for yourself,
right?
Okay, no one else is. So it's not about being a braggart, but it's about being business focused and letting people know what you've done or what you're capable of doing. Okay, because managers and supervisors in the workplace are not mind readers.
Okay.
Okay. And, of course, they have an expectation of you to do certain things. But at the same time, when you go above and beyond, sometimes they really don't know. So that self-advocacy is an okay thing to do.
That's good to know, because a lot of us, we feel uncomfortable in that area because we haven't been developed to do that. And so we have to remember, everybody, we can advocate for our own selves, and it is okay. We just got the authoritative word on that from Johnny Knatt, the HR guru himself. Okay, so we have the soft skills and the hard skills you mentioned in the workplace, and then everybody's bringing their skill sets and their talents and their histories and their geographical influences into the workplace. But how do we get to that point of identifying that those are the things that are causing conflict in the workplace?
Well, and I'll take it a step further than that, because as a coach, where I like to start with my coachees is recognizing where they are. Okay. So I always do something called coaching to the gap. Okay, and coaching to the gap simply means that where are you now and where do you want to be? Okay, so we start from that standpoint. I like to do assessments. I like to do skill assessments. I like to do assessments to help people understand how well they know themselves. What's their behaviors like? Because behaviors are perceived, okay, and perception is reality to a lot of people. So I start with folks, helping them recognize where they are on the gap, and what do they need to get there. Also, what are they willing to give to get there? Because there's no silver bullet. It's not something that you're going to get to overnight. Okay. It's a commitment. It's a long-term commitment to work on those skills and identify what key, whether it's these top skills or whether it's a hard skill that you need to develop and work on in order to get there. So it's a plan. It's a plan. It's not a one-time fix all kinds of issue. So we develop a plan, we develop a work plan, and then we work the plan. My job is to hold you accountable. Okay. Okay. Many times we develop action plans, but nothing happens as a result of them. So I try to hold people accountable, and we meet and we talk. And 9 times out of 10, the solution to the issue is within them. I try not to give you my solution because it's kind of like hijacking your agenda. I don't want to hijack your agenda. I don't want to make you do something or work a plan that may not be suitable for you. Okay? Because if you fail, then you'll say, well, Johnny, that wasn't what I really wanted to do. So I really try to work with the coachees and help them understand what is it that you really think that will help you succeed. What is it that you think? Okay, what have you tried in the past that have helped you to be successful? Those things can be reapplied. They can be reapplied in the workplace. It's no different.
That sounded so good about you saying the answer is within the individuals that you have to coach. But all too often we don't understand that there is greatness locked on the inside of us, not just on the outside of us, but on the inside. And it has to be tapped into. It has to be released. And so I guess that's where you come in. You help us to identify that which is within, and you provide that pathway for it to be released?
Yes, and we do that through a series of questions. I try to help you identify that by asking you questions. I'll ask you things like what, when, how, And I try to tend to avoid why, because why can make you a little bit defensive. So we'll revisit. We'll spend some time, asking, what does success look like to you?
Okay.
Okay. What are you willing to do to help you get there? How long are you willing to work on this and give this a chance to come to fruition? Because it does take time. It does take practice. So I clearly want to try to identify what is it that you're willing to do to get there. Okay, I can help you, but I have to have a commitment from you to be willing to do that. And far too often I see people who clearly know what they want. They know what they want, but they're not willing to make the commitment to go do it. I can help you along the way. I'm a thinking partner. I'll help build on your ideas and guide you through to kind of make sure that you're focusing on the same skills. However, you've got to do the work. Okay, and that's the thing I have to find, that people, they have to do the work. There's got to be some work there that they're willing to do to get there.
Okay, Johnny, you hit on a key point there about work. I like all these other things about the assessment, the commitment. Commitment only takes us as far as we're willing to go. Reassess, we have to periodically go back, revisit our progress, where we are in where our status is, to be able to see if development has occurred, has change occurred, but we have to give it an ample amount of time. But you said work. Where is that disconnect in the generations of today, that we feel like we do a little bit of work, but we should see huge progress? What happened there between the generations? Because generations before, they were like, you better work and you better work hard. Even you just mentioned how your mom said all you have to do is work. But nowadays everybody thinks, I put in 10 cents worth of work, but I should have $100,000 return on it. What happened?
I hear and spend a lot of time talking about generational differences, but Patrina, I really don't believe that there's a lot of difference. I really don't. I think what's missing today, and we need to really focus on it, is getting very clear on our expectations. What are the expectations of us in the workplace? Okay, getting very clear. A lot of times we get into the workplace, we onboard to the work, we jump in, and we start trying to change the world in our workplace. And it may not be exactly what the focus is for the individual. It may not be related to the company. It may just be our own big ideas.
Okay.
And I tell you, today, our young folks come with a lot of talent, a lot of ideas. The problem, I think, is that when they show up with these great ideas and all of this talent, it may not be aligned to the mission or the work of the company that they're doing. I think we've got to learn to stop and figure out, how do we focus our energies and our talents toward the organization that we're working for. It's not about us. It's about how we're contributing to the work of the company or the business that we're in. And I think that's the biggest disconnect. And when those things don't happen, when the young person comes in and they make tremendous contributions and they're doing all this stuff and they're suggesting ideas and they fall on deaf ears and nothing happens for them, they leave. Okay, they leave, and they've invested time, the company has invested time, they leave. But it's not about what they haven't done, it's that they haven't taken the time to get aligned with, they're working for a company. Now, if you're working for yourself, it's a different story. But when you work for a business, you want to align your talents and your energies to the outcomes that the company wants you to achieve, not what you want to achieve.
You know, that was, well, we needed to hear that part there. And that was a little bit comforting to say that they didn't have anything, those employees who feel disgruntled. It's not that they weren't contributing to the overall vision of the company. They just did not align their own agendas with that of the company's. And because we're also always trained to think, to go work for somebody, and sometimes you have to determine whether you're supposed to be that employee or the entrepreneur. And so I think too, sometimes that's where the conflict comes in. But the workplace is a good place to start so that you can develop your vision along your life's journey or on your pathway to becoming whatever you're called to be. So, wow, that was really good.
Yeah, and just if I could, just as an add-on to that, Patrina, I think sometimes that we forget about the balance. There's a work-life balance. Especially today, I think if there is one generational difference that I guess I would acknowledge is that there is more of a need for personal time. Okay, you and I used to work initially at our start. When we worked, we would work whatever hours that were needed. You know, when I started, I did shift work. 3 different shifts around the clock, and that was very, very unsettling. Today, most organizations, especially once you get into the management positions or the professional positions, we don't work around the clock. We don't do shift work. But getting back to work-life balance, I think that the younger generations want that time. They want that personal time. And sometimes, you're not, again, getting back to alignment with your supervisor, your manager. When those things don't align, that does cause some problems. But, a key difference I see a lot is the time at work, the personal time that's required. Nowadays people show up at the start of the workday and they leave right at the end of the workday, and that's okay with them whether the work is done or not. So could be okay in some workplace cultures, others it might not be.
Wow. Do you think that the younger generations are seeking more of that personal time with their family because they're the recipients of the neglect of it? And so, therefore, we have that issue of workplace balance now?
Yeah, it could be a number of different things. I think, certainly it has something to do with, their background, the way where they came up. If they came up in a culture that espoused that, but today with all the different forms of the internet and communication and various forms of media, there's more advertising that shows people doing more fun things and enjoying life more. So. And I'm not against that. I'm all for that. I think that's important. But there's a number of different reasons why people are, are valuing that more and expecting that more. I mean, and in reality, I think that's okay because, the better you are at home, the better you are at work. I believe there should be a balance, but sometimes we lose that balance, and we've got to be cognizant all the time of what that balance is, because obviously I can say commit most of your day to work, but then you're going to have some problems on the family end, and so you have to really be cognizant of what that balance is.
A whole lot of thoughts flooded my mind when you said that about being good in one area of your life and not so good in another. And when we need to be diligent about all areas, some people throw themselves into their work, so for them that's fine if things aren't good at home, but others of us, we really feel drawn to home because things are good. And so we still have to have that balance. We can't neglect work either just because things might be great in our personal lives, but we have to be diligent about finding a connection there. The connection is really you, but you have to put as much effort, I believe, in all areas of your life, whatever is in your charge to do. Try to do that as effectively as you can. You're not going to be 100% on in every area, but you can continue to have the goal to achieve perfection, but we'll never really get there, but we can always have that goal before us. The younger generations, I watched them, and you talked about them bringing in their attitudes, their behaviors into the workplace, but some of us older generations, we look at them and we're like, how do you not get that? It's supposed to be like this. You already kind of tagged on it, but can you talk about that some more, about us learning how to bridge that gap in between the generations?
Yeah, and in the workplace, the way it works is you must come in with and you're speaking of attitude, if there's an attitude that you must have, is a willingness to learn. Okay. Mm-hmm. Most organizations have an onboarding period where you onboard to the work, where you learn, very clearly, what the work is and how can I contribute to it in the most effective manner. The piece that has to occur in order for us to mesh, the learning foundations of the older generation, as well as what you might think is more important, is to, you be patient. Seek to understand first before being understood. And, it's an old cliche that was, said a long time ago, but it still applies.
Yes.
You want to learn and understand how it's being done before you seek to change it. And what happens is, in a lot of cases that I've experienced where people become frustrated and leave the organizations, is that, they don't have room for differences of opinions or ideas or the way the work is being done. Change is great. Most organizations thrive on change, and we must thrive on change too. But there is a process. There's a process, and we've got to understand what is the process, the work processes in terms of how we see it now. Because it's great to come in with a better idea. I think that's one of the reasons why we hire people who are different, because we want differences of ideas. But how do we go about bringing about incorporating our new ideas and change into those programs? So that's really the key there. I think, today we have 4 different generations in the workplace.
Right.
And we've got to understand how to still value that most tenured baby boomer, as well as that, that Gen Z who's out there entering the workplace right now is an 18-year-old. So we've got to do that. But what I coach, whether it's the older generation or the new, is to understand, take the time first to understand how things are being done, why we're doing them that way, and then introduce your ideas. But it's you got to kind of put the horse before the cart. So to speak. But
how do we get to the place of introducing those ideas? Now, me looking from and this applies to a business as well as a church. Okay, these are principles or formats that should occur in both areas or whatever it is you're a part of. It could be a social organization. Every organization requires structure in order for it to perform effectively. But even in the church, we feel like our voices aren't being heard, not me per se, but a lot of other people. So they jump out and then they go start other churches. But anyway, that was a sidebar. But in the workplace, how do we, like you said, seek to understand before being understood, but we have to learn how to develop the patient skill that you spoke of so that we can learn how to speak the lingo of that work environment in order to communicate our ideas effectively?
Yeah, I think you describe it well. And as I said earlier, it's a process. And I think early on, what my coaching advice to new hires in an organization is to take time to understand how things are being done.
Okay.
And I like to do a culture talk in my work environment with new hires. I say, let's take time to talk about the culture. So what is culture? Okay. Mm-hmm. Culture can be defined as, how do we do things around here? How do things get done around here? Okay? Because most of us, we think we know or we don't know, and we move forward. And those things kind of cause some friction, or they cause problems for us in the workplace. So learn the culture. Learn the culture of, what are the values? Watch. Look around, see how people are displaying those values, displaying the purpose, displaying all of those buzzwords that we now use around the organization. But it really comes down to culture. Are people living that culture, or it's just words on paper? So take a look around, see how people are actually living in the workplace. Okay, it's not a matter of being complacent and settling with that. No, that's not the idea. Complacency is a business killer. Wow. You don't want to be complacent, but you want to at least understand and respect, the work that's been done up to this point. Okay, because then you'll get that support from your peers, your supervisors, in terms of understanding. It's the key here is, the key word is understanding how we're doing things now. That makes a much bigger and better case for change in terms of building in your ideas and your values and things that you think we could do better.
I thought about, as you said all of that, I thought about how a lot, you mentioned developing the skill too, which requires time, it requires patience. But a lot of the younger generations nowadays, and I can say that because I have young adults for children, sometimes they don't want to hear, and then they end up making costly mistakes because they brought into the workplace what they thought was good, or even in the household, what they thought was good to do because that's their norm, that's their culture. But it costed them in the end, and then they get super frustrated with those around them. How do we connect with that voice, that thought, that what I do, this is what I think it's okay for me to do, but it's not okay for you to do in the workplace. Mm-hmm. But then now you're getting your walking papers. Mm-hmm. I mean, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, and we've got to make sure that people understand that they are accountable. Okay, and that there are consequences for behaviors in the workplace. Unlike being at home, sometimes we can get away with doing some things, but in the workplace, there's always consequences for a behavior. So if you're showing up late for work consistently, there's going to be some consequences of that. If you're not completing your assignments timely and completely and meeting the expectation, there's going to be some consequences for that. So understand what the behaviors are that's required in all aspects of your work. If you're not interfacing very well with your peers, okay, understand what's the expected behavior of not interfacing well with. There's a consequence to that. You can't expect to get promoted to the next level if you're demonstrating that you can't handle communicating and working effectively, with your peers. So understand clearly. I tell everybody early on, get a work plan, understand what those key responsibilities are that you're going to be held accountable for, and meet or exceed those expectations when you do that. And I'm not just talking about the work, I'm talking about the behaviors as well. Okay, what is expected from you around teamwork? What's expected around you for communication? What's expected from you in leadership? And yes, I said leadership. Okay, because even though you may not have a title, okay, if you want to be influential, there are some qualities that you really have to demonstrate so that you're perceived as a leader. You're perceived as the person who can handle the responsibilities at the next level. Okay, so it's again, I use the term process. I've used it quite a bit here. But in every aspect of the work you do, you need to understand what's expected of me. What is the process?
So you're talking about the forward motion, or always being in the pursuit of development to grow into the next level, not just staying where you are. Because you're talking about, you said being perceived as a leader. That means you should have that goal ahead of you to go to the next level, not just be, like you mentioned earlier about being complacent or staying right where you are. You should always be in the mode of progressing.
Yes, and there's two different positions that I put on that. Everybody doesn't want to get promoted. Okay, but everybody does want to be perceived as the best they are at what they're doing. So even if you want to stay at that position, that's fine. That doesn't mean that you stop growing or you stop being better. So you always want to look for, how can I be the best that I can be in this position, which includes leadership. Those being able to influence others. That's what leadership really is. How do I do that better? Now, if you are in pursuit of growth vertically as well, you certainly, I always tell people, if you're wanting to grow vertically within an organization, you should start planning that the first day of your new assignment. Start thinking about that. So you say, Johnny, how do you do that? Well, you're meeting people. Okay, you're talking to different people. You're getting a fix in your mind around, what is it that I really want to do? Does this fit my skill set? Is this my passion? Is this some things that I really want to work toward? So, the way you do that is you start to ask people. You start to develop relationships with people. You start to sit down and have a cup of coffee with them and say, tell me, how did you achieve this level within your career? What was your career path like? What was some key skills? What's some feedback that you give me just based on the brief time that we've talked that I can move forward and accomplish on the level that you have accomplished? I mean, I'm only 2 years into my assignment. So you say, help me understand, what are some of the things that you'd recommend? So it's, and really most people, I find, who are at a higher level, they love to tell this story.
They do.
They really do. They love to tell how they got there and to help others. So use that as an approach. But again, if you want to stay at level, that's fine, because, at some time in your life, you know, you want to focus most of your time to maintaining that balance. You don't have time to overcommit in the workplace. You're raising a family, and your focus is on that. So, but if you want to do that, that doesn't mean that you don't stop learning. Keep looking for the latest in learning methods and technology and those type things.
I like that, because all too often we miss those key components. We should always be learning. We should always be growing. We should always be developing. We're not dead. And if you aren't, I call that the walking dead. Those people who are not developing at all. I mean, it is what it is. I said that to somebody recently, and they were just coming at me on so many fronts. And I'm like, but you're not even growing. You're not even developing. You're walking dead. And that just ended the whole conversation. So then they were able, since then they've been able to hear a little bit more what I'm trying to say to them on other points. But we have to take that up on our own. We can't expect others to do all the work for us, which you basically mentioned earlier. We're always wanting people to do for us, but we're not willing to do for ourselves. And that's where the commitment comes in. We have to first have that epiphany moment. Hey, am I doing enough of the right work? Am I doing enough work, to get to where I want to go? And where is it I want to go? Because sometimes we're just doing stuff and we don't even know why we're doing it, because everybody else is, or somebody told me to. But where do you stop and connect with your own self and determine what journey are you traveling? Is this the journey that God has for you? Because sometimes we're picking up talents or skills, traits that other people told us to, and we're not even thriving in it because we're doing what somebody else said we should do when we haven't learned our own vision, what that vision should be for us. Can you talk about that, about the people who are in the workforce, but they're not really happy because they're not doing what they've been called to do, what God created them for?
I would bet today, I'm so glad you brought that topic up, because I would bet that today over 50% of the people who are doing those jobs that have been seen as the popular jobs, the techie jobs, I have so many people who call me and say, I went to school, I got a degree or two in marketing, and I hate marketing, and I hate it. But they did it just because, it was the popular thing to do. They didn't get the right guidance, obviously, in high school or in college, but this was the thing that they saw as the right areas to go in. I think it's critical that as you enter the workforce, and gosh, we have so many people who are changing careers. It seemed like the 40-year-olds are the key ones. It seems like at a 40-year, when people hit 40, they said, "Oh, I'm not where I should be. Am I in the right career?" And they restart, which is fine. I think you can restart at any point. But I encourage people to do skill assessments, do career assessments. I do HR work and I do coaching because I'm passionate about what I do. I mean, I could do this every day, 7 days a week, and not feel like I'm exhausted. It's because I love it. Okay? I think it's critical that you identify that area, not so much that's popular, that you want to make a lot of money in, but that which serves your life purpose. Okay, when you can identify something that you can do that meets your needs. Now, I know we can't do that right away because, we all have to pay our bills. We all have bills. We have to make money. But at the same time, if you're working toward getting into that career where you're making a difference, you're not only making a difference, for the company that you're working for, but you're making a difference for yourself. Okay, you're seeing things move forward as a result of your efforts. Okay, where can I make a difference?
Where can I make
a difference? To me, should be a huge. And look, it's not something that you get right away.
Okay.
It's not. It's sometimes I've seen people make 2 or 3 starts. Okay, and it doesn't work. And it's okay. It's okay. When you see that, but then you got to be true to yourself. You got to be honest with yourself and say, is this a good fit for me? And restart. It's never too late. You know, I mean, I've had, this is my 3rd career. Okay, it's all in the same area, but just keep reinventing yourself if you have to.
All right.
Yes, just do that. And I mean, I don't know, reinventing yourself is a buzzword, but I mean it from a passion standpoint. If you change, if your environment changes, you may change. Okay, you may find that you're very savvy in another area. You have another gift, that you've been given, but you've never used it, and all of a sudden it's coming up to the surface. And you're saying, wow, I really see this. So listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Don't be misguided by what others tell you, because as I started out earlier, I believe that we all have a God-given talent. We all have a skill that we can prosper in. Okay, but we've got to listen to ourselves, and we've got to work at it. It's not going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to be easy, right?
Right.
But if you stay focused, get the skills, the knowledge, and have the will to do it, you can succeed. You can succeed.
Okay. Okay. And I agree with that. But have you discovered that there's a certain amount of time that we should begin to expect to identify progress? I think they call that benchmarking, where you set deadlines, goals, and you do a reevaluation of what has taken place to notice where you are. Because the reason why I'm bringing that out is sometimes some things take longer than other things to happen. And people get discouraged along the way. And so when they don't see any kind of movement or progress or impact, they tend to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe this is not what I need to do. And then they get off course. They're not focused anymore. They start looking elsewhere for answers when they should, in fact, keep working on it until the appointed time.
Yeah, that's a common occurrence. And, I think the first thing you said was very important, and I think people need to practice, which is to have a plan. Write your goals down. Put them on paper. Write them down. If you write them down, you're much more likely to go back and look at them and see where you are. And don't just write your goals down, but write an action plan out of that. I always tell people, if you're anxious about something, the best way to get rid of that anxiety, take action. Okay? Take action. So when you develop your goals, you've got to have some action plans. So if you see things are not going, it's okay to say, well, I thought I was going to do this in order to help me move forward. It's not helping me to move forward. Make an adjustment. That's okay. I mean, it's flexible. It's dynamic. It's not static. It doesn't have to be just one way. Try something different. Just know that the route to your goal is not a straight line. It's very circuitous. Okay, and so you might be doing some of this stuff, but at the end of the day, you're really measuring your forward momentum. You're still moving forward. So, that's the key. Know that it's not, everything does not happen the way you think it should. Okay? Sometimes you have failures, and it helps you to recognize something that you might not otherwise have recognized. Okay? So it's not a straight line. It's not easy either. You know, if you look at most of the people who have succeeded and you go back and talk to them, career-wise or otherwise, anything that they've done, you know, they have spent a considerable amount of time and effort working on it. If you look at, and pardon me for using a sports analogy here, but...
Oh, no problem.
You know, if you look at all the great golfers, I hesitate to use Tiger Woods as an example, but because some people might find him favorable or not favorable. But if you look at how many years it took him to develop the level of expertise that he has right now, you know, most people will say it takes 10 years, you know, to where things come automatically for you. If you've ever read the book Outliers, it talks about that in the Outliers book about, you know, if you consistently do something, if you are just very, very consistent at doing something that moves you forward, you get better. You get it just happens. Whether it's being on a diet, you know, if you consistently practice those dietary kind of things, you will lose weight, right? Or put on weight or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. But it's about consistency. You know, it's about consistency and you know, being consistent in what you do.
Well, first I need to get that book, Outliers.
Malcolm Gladwell, by the way. Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah. And then also I need to be consistent about working on my diet. But anyway, I like how you said all of that about the 10 years, because I remember hearing another study not too long ago, a little bit over a year ago, where they said scientists have proven if you want to be a success at anything, it's been scientifically proven you need to do almost 7 years worth of work in order to get there. So to think that there's an overnight success, unless you have an unusual or a unique ability that the world needs right now, that little simple idea, because usually those are simple ideas, I notice. They're not anything monumental a lot of times. But if you have that one unique thing, then you can become that overnight success. But for the rest of us, we better put in that 7 to 10 years worth of work in order to get to where we're trying to go. So we don't need to waste time on foolishness. We invest a lot of our time, our quality time, in other people's dreams and visions. We watch too much TV. We pay attention to what this person and that person is doing, and that takes away the time we need to work on our own purpose. And so get busy about what God has called you to do. But first, you need to find that out. And on that note, Johnny, how or what were the factors that led to you determining that this is your purpose, to help empower people to become better employees or employers, that workplace environment? What were those things that led you to recognize that this is where you need to be?
Well, I'll tell you a story. And I reference back to the time when I worked for Procter & Gamble. The first 5 years I spent as a supervisor, and I was working hard and I was working long. I mean, I was working shift work. You know, I worked around the clock. I had a number of entry-level positions, but I never got promoted. Okay? I would go out to the universities recruiting new people, and I would see those people pass me by. They'd get promoted over me.
The same people you recruited? The same people
I recruited. You know, so I said, something's not happening here. Something's not working. You know, why is this not working for me? So I was going to do what most people do, which is to what? Leave the organization. This isn't the place for me. And I had a friend who tapped me on the shoulder one day, and he said, "Johnny, I hear you're thinking about leaving the company." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why?" I said, so I told him the story. I said, I see Andy and Bobby and Susie and all these people who have gone out recruited and trained, and then they're moving forward ahead of me. He said, let me give you something to think about. He said, "Johnny, have you, first off, communicated what you want? Have you communicated your goals? Have you communicated your aspirations to your supervisor and to others?" I said, "No." He said, "Have you consistently demonstrated that you can handle more responsibility?" I said, "Well, I work hard." He said, "You get paid to work hard. You get a paycheck, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what have you done to show that you can handle responsibility in addition to what you do?" Because that's what moving to the next level means. It means being able to demonstrate that. So I said, "Okay." I said, "Help me." So he said, I want you to identify what are some needs, some emerging needs, not just of your organization, but of the plants. I was working in a plant at the time. He said, "What are some of the plant's needs that you could kind of help accomplish that's above and beyond your initial responsibility?" So we worked together. I identified a need. I took on that project after some conversation. I executed that project with excellence. I showed that I could communicate. I trained the whole plant. It was a safety issue that was looming large, that it caused a lot of problems and could cause more problems. So I took on that project. I trained people. I documented it. I executed it with excellence. And 5 months later, I got promoted.
Wow.
Okay. I got promoted, and I got a really nice pay increase with that promotion. So at that point, I stopped and I said, I know what I was missing. I didn't understand how things work. I didn't understand how things got done. I thought, because I was my first generation in my family to ever go to college, when I graduated from college, I had nobody to teach me this.
Wow.
And the same thing occurs today. A lot of, especially, people who look like me, they're the first generation to go into business. They don't have anybody, they don't have a parent or tell them how things work because they've never been in a business environment. Mm-hmm. So at that point, Patrina, I said, what I want to do going forward is I want to help people understand how to navigate their way through the workplace. Okay? How to deal with those issues. For me, it was a career issue. But for many people, it's a lot of different things. Sometimes, you ever hear that people don't leave companies, they leave managers and they leave supervisors. A lot of times people were having problems with their supervisors, so they were leaving great opportunities because they didn't know how to do that. So, I looked at, all of those things and said, and at that time I didn't have all the experience that I have now, but as I continued to evolve through different assignments and different roles in the company, I understood better and better how those things work. I understood policy and procedure and employment law in terms of how they affect employees and how to work together effectively as a team, organizational development, how to train, how to learn. So all of those things drove me to, what do I do with this?
Wow.
What do I do with this knowledge? What do I do with this? So, and obviously, the idea is not to get rich doing
Right.
this. No, I'd do something different. If that, I'd be buying lottery tickets or something. But it's giving back. I saw this as an opportunity to help a lot of people. And during my career at Procter & Gamble, and even since that time, I've had so many people come back and tell me, Johnny, thank you for helping me. Thank you. Just those words that, I still people still contact me today. People who are on the verge of leaving the organization, leaving very good positions, and I was able to help them move forward. So yes, that's how I got. That's what keeps me so engaged in helping others, because when you see that you make a difference, not only in their lives, in their careers, in their day-to-day life in the workplace, it makes it easier. It's worth it.
So building on that, would you say that a lot of us could actually be operating where we're supposed to be at, but if we ignore all the red flags, we can start a whole nother career when we should have been staying where we are and just tweaking that?
Yeah, and it depends. It depends on the individual. It depends on where you want to go. I think you should continually assess where you are, and you got to ask yourself, the real frank questions. If it's more than just, if you're just staying there for the money, that's different. You like the paycheck. You're okay with, coming in, doing the work and going home. But if you're willing to grow and you want to develop more and you want to continuously, see yourself, evolving as a key player in the organization, continue to assess yourself, continue to see where you are, continue to get, and a lot of people don't ask for this, feedback. Feedback is a gift.
Okay.
Ask for feedback. Ask for feedback wherever you can. And you don't have to take all the feedback that you get. Pick those gold nuggets out of that basket of feedback and toss the rest aside. It might not apply to you.
Yeah.
But, get the feedback. Ask. And be okay with it, because sometimes feedback hurts. Feedback really hurts.
I know my father teaches a lot about there being destructive and constructive criticism and learning how to cut the fat from the steak.
I like that.
So that's where you talked of pulling out those golden nuggets and using that to serve as breadcrumbs to a pathway of success or fulfillment. More so fulfillment. Like you said, money is one thing. We need it because we got to eat, we got to live. But you want us to, or you're suggesting to us to not be afraid to go here with the person we're asking to critique us, but learn how to pull from that. Even if they say some stuff that doesn't hurt, we have to learn how to pull away from it those nuggets that can help us to grow.
Yeah, that's correct. And, as I said earlier, feedback itself, can be a little bit unsettling, but when you learn, and I was telling someone the other day, rejection is a learning tool, and sometimes when you get feedback and you don't hit the mark, we see that as rejection. It's okay to be rejected sometimes. You can learn some things from rejection, know. But the key with feedback is you don't want to take it personal.
Okay.
It's not about you. It's either about the work or it's about a behavior that you've demonstrated. Okay? So you can't take it personal. Okay? If someone is personally attacking you, then that's not feedback.
Okay.
That's not feedback. That's somebody being not nice. You know, and there's no place for that in the workplace. So, you know, say, and you can redirect that. Say, you know, tell me, how does that apply to the work that I do with you every day? Because that's really what you want to get more effective at. But, you know, it's the key here is that people understand it's not personal. It's not personal. And that rejection is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all.
I like that. Never heard that before. I noticed I'm taking a lot of notes. Do you have a book?
I've never published. I am going to write my story at some point, but no.
Okay.
I like to. I love to talk, as you can tell.
That's okay.
But I do love to listen too. So I feel like I'm still in a learning mode. You know, even this morning, you know, as I spoke to Mr. Oliver, and I realized how much I still have to learn. And that's why I love meeting people. One of my favorite things is meeting new people. And I still love to learn. So I think, you know, if I ever do that, it'll be a book about things that I've learned from others, because I haven't really learned a lot on my own. You know, I've learned from others by talking to people, and I encourage, you know, people to use that as a learning mode. Listen, ask people to tell their stories. Tell your story. Stories are powerful.
Yes.
Okay, stories tell. You know, and facts, what do they say? Stories sell and facts tell. Okay, so tell your stories. Everybody has a story. I try to get people to tell their story, tell me their story at the beginning of a coaching session. Because I tell you, most of the time, 99% of the time, I find that person has gone above and beyond and has shown some significant strength in getting to where they are right now. Whether it was when they were teenagers and what they accomplished and how they accomplished it, or either as adult in their personal lives, as parents, you know, as single parents. Single parents have a powerful story to tell. I was a single parent for 10 years.
Wow.
And to me, that story itself is so enabling for me. So tell your story and get stories from other folks as well.
Wow, that's even interesting, but never knew that about you. But yes, we all have a story to tell. And Johnny already mentioned it early on in the show. Don't minimize the value of your story. You know, just share it. You have something in your story that somebody needs to help them to get to their next level. And they may not tell you what it is, but they'll use it, and they might come back and say thank you. But know that your story is just as valuable as the next person's. I know I'm a people person, so I love people's stories. So I'm one of those. I'll ask, how did you get there? What made you do this? You know, I just love that about people. I like reading their stories. And so whenever I hear people trying to pursue a particular goal, I said, let so-and-so be your mentor by reading their story, because then you'll learn something about them, and then that'll be your next clue as to what direction you need to go in. So I've always been that person. I love people. I just love people. I'll take a lot of bad in the process because I love people, but I like seeing the good that's in people as well, and not just focusing on the negative, because we all have negative things we need to build on. But if we're always in pursuit of becoming better, okay, and not bitter, we'll develop those skills. And sometimes people will overlook the negative and focus on the better. But anyway, again, we're here in the WCEG Network studio with our wonderful guest, Mr. Johnny Knatt, the HR workplace coach. So if people want to get in touch with you, Johnny, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is to email me, and you can email me at info@mclure, thehrworkplacecoach.com, and I will get back in touch with you. You know, and before we leave the stories, though, I just want to make one other comment, because people have found strength in their stories where they thought they didn't have any strength or power at all. People have come to me and said, I'm struggling with doing this. And they tell me their story, and I said, you've done this already. And they find strength from that. So getting back, just to leave you with that story, there's strength in your story because of where you've come from and things that you have done. Thank you. You
know, and that's really a biblical thing, too, because the Bible talks about how we overcome not only by being repositioned, but by the word of our testimony. The power of the word of God and the power of our testimony, they work hand in hand. And so it is necessary that we we share our stories with other people, because you're helping. You know, you might not even think that there's anything powerful in your mouth, but it is, because you're somebody unique. You're somebody special. You have a purpose. You may not know what it is, but everybody has a purpose. So we should be focused on finding out what that is in order to become more productive, to live more rewarding lives, do what you've been called to do. And like Johnny said, in case you're on the wrong track, it's okay to hit that reset button and start again. There's nothing wrong with starting over. That's the thing about grace. We have to start over again. We might fall, but we got to get back up. You know, if we fall, don't stay there. Something is wrong with the staying there, but there's nothing wrong with the fall as long as you get back up. And so we all have mistakes we have to learn from. Let your mistakes become your mentors. Pull the power of the lesson out of the defeated instances in your life, the defeated situations, you know, those things that even make you feel bad. Find out why you feel bad about you, and then find out what you should do to feel better about you. All right. So there, I'm not sure where we are on the time clock here, but I think we have a little bit more time. Is that right, Mr. Oliver? We have about 10 to 15 more minutes left here with Mr. Johnny Knatt. I call him in my mind the HR guru himself. I love being around that energy that you put off, your soul receiving of people, regardless as to how bad the situation is. You have a way of making us feel better about ourselves. And so I'm scared to imagine whatever happens with those people who have to get let go. I mean, I just imagine what that could be like, but he just makes you feel better about it, you know, no matter how bad it is. And I like that about you, Johnny. So, and he has a lot of jokes too. He has such a wonderful personality, but I always learn something from you whenever we do talk. So before we go off the air, what are some takeaways that our WCEG network audience can walk away with from listening to today's show?
Yeah, I want to leave one common thought. Is the workplace is complex. Okay, don't take it for granted. Don't think you can just walk in and do what you think you're supposed to do. It's not that easy. Okay? Yes, you can if you just want to basically survive and get through week to week. But the workplace should be fun. Make it fun for you. Make it challenging for you. Make it engaging for you. You spend more time at work than you do at home, most of us. Okay, so my whole belief is that it should be fun. It should be fun. If you're running into difficulties or having difficulties, don't internalize them. Work through them. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Deal with those frustrations. Understand, okay? Understand what's required to move forward. Always feel like I'm moving forward, okay? I'm not stuck. Okay? Don't allow yourself to get stuck and stay there. Understand what it takes to get that tow truck and get your car out of the ditch. Okay? You don't stay in the ditch. So that's my parting thought to you, is that the workplace is complex, and there are ways to get yourself in a position where you're feeling good, not only about the workplace, but about your career, about your development and growth, and everything related to you being who you are, because the workplace is a big piece of it. Okay? So take the necessary steps. Get help. Get help. There's help out there. Okay? You're not in this by yourself. The more you talk to other people, whether it's me or anybody else, you're going to find that people are experiencing the same things that you are. Talk to them. Find out how they're moving forward. What do they do to get past, their unsatisfactory relationship with their peers or their supervisor? Why they're not getting pay increases, unless you're working for state government. But anyway, how do I keep moving forward? What do they do? Okay, you can learn a lot. So you're not in this alone. It can be a lonely journey, the workplace. If you think that you're in the journey by yourself, you're not. A lot of times, though, you can't depend on your manager or your supervisor to come and move you through.
Okay.
Okay. The manager and supervisor also has a manager or a supervisor, and they're sometimes distracted and they don't have the time to invest. You've got to take control of this yourself. Okay. Don't expect just to do what I did the first 5 years at Procter & Gamble. Just work hard and expect somebody to take care of you. It doesn't work that way always. Sometimes it does. Okay? But just know that you own your own career. You own your own success. You own it. Take action. Don't just sit there and be frustrated and look back 30 years later and say, I should have done something. Take action. Understand what it takes. Be committed to it. Write you out a plan. Okay? Write it down. Go back to it. Visit it often. See where you are. Okay? And hold yourselves accountable. If you say you're going to do it, do it.
That was powerful when you said you own your own career. I think that would be a shift for a whole lot of us if we understand we have to take more ownership by asking the right questions, talking to the right people, and not necessarily to those who vent a lot, but talk to those who might vent with you, but also have the ability to help propel you to your next level. Those people who are willing to pour into you to bring out the best in you. So in other words, we have to be a little bit more aggressive about our own role. Wow, that was so powerful. You own your own career. Be more aggressive about your own role in your workplace history. And I like how you mentioned it's not necessarily about how you think or what you think, but finding out how something works. And those are two different things.
They really are. Yeah. The whole career development aspect is, we could have a session here just totally on career development, because it is a process. But, the main thing is that you communicate what you want. You got to communicate what you want. You got to let people know where you're headed, where you're going. Okay. And because if people don't know where you're going, they don't know how to help you get there. All right, so you got to communicate that. It doesn't happen automatically as well. And the other piece of that is be willing. If you're going to be the best at what you do, be willing to put in the work required to get there. I tell people all the time, they say, well, should I go get my MBA or, I said, get certified. If you want to be a specialist in a certain area, know more about it. You know, I've been training for 30 years. I just recently completed my training certification. I went back and got it because I wanted to know, how can I get better? You know, when people ask me to train it on something, make sure that they're hitting the right, they're getting the right out of their experience, the right learning out of their experience. So don't stop. Just keep going, and you will hit your mark.
All right. So, do you have like group sessions you do, or do the business owners contact you, corporations? How are we able to sit where you're just teaching us so that we can grow besides being on Church Biz?
Yeah, I have several different ways. You know, I do give free workshops from time to time. I utilize GoToMeeting a lot. You know, do presentations on GoToMeeting because a lot of people, you know, they work and they have families, and I do these in the evenings. You know, I'll offer a session. For example, right now, I'm getting ready to set up a free session for a limited amount of people.
All right.
on the 10 key skills that you really should have. And I talked briefly a little bit about that, but it goes into helping you assess where you are in those 10 key skills. The other ways that you can work with me, obviously, I have business people who identify folks in their organization that they want to support and develop, and they don't have the time to do it, but they recognize that there are some key learnings that they need to be focused on. So they become the stakeholders, and we set up objectives along with the person participating. We set up objectives, joint objectives, in terms of what type of things that we work together on. And then there's just the individual who says, Johnny, I want you to coach me to help me achieve a certain objective. And we go from there. I have individual coaching sessions as well.
So do you also help organizations develop performance management tools?
Yeah, I like to work with foundations. I've been trying to connect with foundations who have identified, you know, particular groups who need specialized training, for example, in soft skills. And I continue to go to soft skills. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But yeah, foundations as well, who may want to sponsor a group event or have, you know, me target a particular group to achieve some learnings there.
That is so interesting. So the employer is aggressive about developing the employee, but as well, like you said, the employee has to understand that they own their career. Wow, that was that light bulb moment. So hopefully that has impacted you as well, so that you can be a little bit more aggressive about the things you want to see happen in your own career. And you mentioned communicate with your supervisor and your managers about where it is you want to go, because they don't know. Because if you don't say anything, people don't know. You know, it's just like, you know, we don't know that you don't have money to pay your light bill if you don't tell anybody you need help. But anyway, same thing, same principle. You got to talk about what it is that you need so that you can get what you want or you need. Mm-hmm.
And that's a great landing point there, because talk about what you need. Talk about it to your employer. Retention is a big deal today. Retaining their valuable employees. And most employers, if they know that you have a need for growth and development in a certain area, they will sponsor you. They will, i.e., pay for your additional growth and development. So don't hesitate to say what you need for your individual development. You know, soft skills is not something that's offered in the workplace. You know, we teach hard skills. You know, rarely do we talk about the interpersonal skills because it's harder to measure the return on their investment. Okay? It's harder to measure that, but all a person has to do is lose one valuable employee. And if they start thinking about the cost of the time and the money they've spent with that employee, plus the impact that the loss of that employee is going to have on a customer or their internal customers, that is significant. It's a lot more than what they would pay to have you develop skills and abilities and knowledge to grow the business.
Amazing. So, like you say, HR is a huge thing. It's never ending, whether it's in the workplace or at church. Whatever it is that you're engaged with, it could be how you manage your family. These are skills that should come from the family unit, but all too often we're focused on, you know, do we have food to eat? Right. You know, who's cooking dinner? Who's cleaning the house? You know, that's a form of HR, you know, at its basic level. But those skills should be developed. The household should give us our basic skill sets. They equip us with something. But we walk out the house with whatever we pour into our family unit into the workplace. It travels there. And so sometimes we hit that wall because what worked at the house doesn't work at the job. Right. And so we got to learn how to recognize when we need to change up a few things, whether it's our basic understanding, you know, whether it's how we've been doing things. And I like how you talked about aligning your skills and your vision, your talent with that of the organizations, because we're working for them. You know, they're not working for us. We're working for them. We said, hey, I can add to your vision when we signed the dotted line. And so we have to remember we're pouring into them, but at the same time, they'll pour into you. So we can have rewarding, fulfilling work careers if we walk down the right pathway and do all the right things to make sure that happens. And then we can be those people who work like God has called us to. We're near the end of our time here, but God has called us to work. You know, that's a part of the purpose of man, to be productive. You know, we should always be in a pathway of progressing our skill sets. We should be growing. We should be developing, you know, as well. We should be about purpose, you know, be purpose driven. Don't just waste time. We all will squander time here and there, but we shouldn't be on a life journey of doing that. And so one final thought, Johnny, and then we'll have to end.
Well, again, I just want to thank you, Patrina, for giving me the opportunity to spend some time this morning talking about something that I really, really enjoy, and that's helping people to move forward in the workplace. And again, I've spoke primarily around the workplace, but as Patrina said, things we learn there, we certainly can reapply them in our personal lives. So please feel free to invest in yourselves, and that's what it is. It's an investment in yourself. Invest in yourself, and you'll see the return on that investment as you go through your career, as you go through the workplace.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Church Biz on this week here at the WCEG Network. I'm your host, Reverend Patrina White McClure. We do hope and pray that something was said to inspire you in your life's calling, in your purpose, in your work career. Remember that you own it. You work it as best as you can, and then you'll feel satisfied at the end of your work history. And then don't be afraid to start again. But tune in again on next week. Next week's show will be on Monday, March 25th. We have a very special guest lined up for you. You will want to tune in. You have a good week and take care. God bless.